Welcome into Locked On Phillies. I'm your host, Connor Thomas, former collegiate and semi-pro baseball player, and also been covering the Phillies for 97.5 The Fanatic for years. Now happy to be with you here on Locked On Phillies. Got a great show planned for you for this Friday. Got a recap of the Pittsburgh Pirates and Phillies matchup with a little bit of Aaron Nola stuff. We'll get into that. But first, I want to talk about Odubel Herrera and the injury he suffered. It opens up the door for somebody in center field, but who? We'll figure out just exactly who Joe Girardi likes, and I'll break that all down on who will probably be manning the middle of the outfield come opening day. Also, we've got a top 8 Phillies moment matchup that we got to recap and another one to get into. And we have the closer where I'll break down what we've done this week and give you our off the poll question that is for Twitter for this weekend. A lot of stuff. Packed show this Friday. Let's get right into it.
You are Locked On Phillies, your daily Philadelphia Phillies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And as always, I want to thank you for making Locked On Phillies your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Got so excited about all the stuff I have for you. Totally forgot to slip that in there right at the beginning. But there we go. We got it. So let's jump into the biggest news in Phillies land right now, which is Odubel Herrera. He had been having a little bit of trouble with his side, with his oblique, and he was going for more testing, but the reports were there was questions about his availability for opening day. So that all came out earlier this week, and the original thought is, well, hey, a little bit of issues. Okay, the door's open. Is it going to be Moniak? Is it going to be Hazley? Is it going to be Vierling? Who is going to fill those spots? Maybe Castellanos plays center, Schwarber plays left, and then somebody DHs. A lot of questions there. So it got a little bit more complicated. Well, clear what's going on as far as the injury, but complicated as far as who's going to replace him, because now we know, as of reports, Odubel Herrera, an MRI came back on that strain. It is a strained oblique. Could miss up to 4 to 6 weeks, significant chunk of time, which definitely puts his status for opening day probably going to be out. Could possibly start the season on the IL, and that means that there's an opportunity. So originally, when there were concerns about Herrera's availability for opening day, manager Joe Girardi said that it really gives Matt Vierling the opportunity to step in and take control of that role. I read you an article from NBC Sports Philadelphia about it when that news first came out. Now, that it's actually official that he's going to miss some time and probably not going to be like 99% sure Odubel Herrera will not be in the opening day lineup as a result of this injury. Is Matt Vierling the right guy? Is he the guy that takes full-on responsibility of it? Let's weigh our options real quick. So for me, the best option is probably play Matt Vierling out there in center. I want Kyle Schwarber to be in the designated hitter role where he probably feels most comfortable. And Castellanos, switching from right field, even though he is, he could play center, I'm trying to say. But I'd rather have him be somewhere where he's more comfortable and where he could play a little bit lower quality defense and get away with it. Matt Vierling is a young kid, but he's going to have his opportunity in center. That's what I think is probably going to play out, just like Joe Girardi has already told us it's leaning. But there are certainly some other options. Adam Hazley, he's a guy that's had major league experience. Of all the options, he's got the most experience at this level playing baseball. So it's very possible that when everything's said and done, Joe Girardi goes with a guy who, even though he didn't play much last year, has had more time than Vierling or Moniak at this level. Just could feel more comfortable with Hazley. I don't, but it's very possible that Girardi ends up feeling that way. And then Hazley would slot into the center field spot. Vierling would be his backup until Herrera comes back, and then they'll figure out how that dynamic works, and everything slots down like that after. Or, and this is the least likely of all the options, but hey, he has not still gotten a fair shake a lot of people feel. I'm already kind of down on him, and this is Mickey Moniak I'm talking about, former number 1 overall selection, who has not played up to those expectations remotely. Well, he's still a center field option. You drafted him as your center fielder of the future, and even though he hasn't demonstrated talent to the major league level at this point, hey, he hasn't really gotten extended time. He's got little blips here and there, and each of them he kind of looked like he didn't deserve more time, which is why he was sent down or benched or whatever the case may be. Well, it could be that this is an opportunity for the Phillies with a very, very strong lineup to put Moniak in the 9-hole, put him in center field, let him get used to major league pitching a little bit more, and give him the full tryout that a lot of his supporters have been saying that he has not yet gotten as a member of the Philadelphia Phillies. It's possible that Moniak's the guy, but it's very, very improbable, I'd say. I'd say right now, if I'm ranking the tiers, 1 is Vierling, 2 is Hazley, 3 is Moniak, and now I have a little out-of-the-box option for you. Johan Camargo has been getting a little bit of interest at third base from what it sounds to be like the front office, Joe Girardi, the other coaches, managers, whatever. Like, they've been looking at Johan Camargo and a strong spring that he's having, coupling that with the troubles that we already know that Alec Boehm has had defensively, and it seems like he hasn't really figured it out at the dish so far yet down in Clearwater. Well, that makes this interesting because it's possible that Johan Camargo could actually slip into that third base spot. We'll talk a little bit about that coming up in our final segment today. But the point that it holds towards this is, let's just say something crazy happens and Johan Camargo is your starting third baseman for the Philadelphia Phillies. It could also be Ronald Torreyes was brought back. He played significant time near the end of last season, had a really, really, really hot stretch where he hugely outperformed what he's probably able to do on a consistent basis over the course of a full season. But those two guys waiting in the wings, one of them takes over at third base. Well, then what could happen is you could put Boehm in the designated hitter spot, even though he hasn't had a strong spring swinging the bat. You could put him in the DH role, and then you could put Castellanos in center, Schwarber in left, and it's not a good defensive outfield, but you could keep those guys all in the lineup. That's just a little bit out of the box if something happens at third base, and trust me, I'm hearing a couple things. I'm hearing some whispers. Third base is not as surely Alec Boehm as it seemed when we came into spring training and as we went through the offseason. I know there were talks about bringing in Chris Bryant because he could play that position. It was never like, oh, Alec Boehm is for sure your third baseman of this year and the future. But now it seems like, well, when they didn't go and get Chris Bryant, they didn't bring someone in free agency that's that high quality. It was like, okay, it looks like they're giving it to Boehm and they're giving the kid a chance. Well, don't be too sure. We'll have to see how this plays out over the next 2 weeks because it's certainly possible there's a different player manning the hot corner for the Phillies when the 2022 regular season begins, when they get into opening day. And we're only just a little over, actually it might be 2 weeks exactly, away from the Philadelphia Phillies opening day game. So a lot of stuff happening there. That Odubel Herrera injury, unfortunate. They brought him back on a cheap deal, so it's not like they have a lot of money committed to a guy that's not going to be playing for them at the start. And I honestly did not like that signing to begin with because I want to see what some of these younger guys have. I know where Herrera's ceiling is, but we'll get a chance to see that in due time because either Matt Vierling, Adam Hazley, Mickey Moniak, or some type of weird option at third base will be what has to happen on opening day with Herrera now no longer available. So just your first bit of interesting news that throws a wrench into the plans of the Philadelphia Phillies. It was the guy in Odubel Herrera who's probably going to be batting in the 9-hole for you, who was signed on a very, very small deal and is probably a lot of people's least favorite player on this team. So it's not a huge wrench, but it's the first obstacle these Phillies will have to overcome. It'll be very interesting to hear the rumors out of Clearwater about how Joe Girardi plans on filling that role and who's going to end up taking the majority of time, playing the majority of innings, and taking the most at bats at that center field position as they wait for Herrera to return. All of that very interesting. And we have actual baseball that went on yesterday that I want to get into next. The Phillies took on the Pirates, and a lot of people are worried once again about Aaron Nola. Hasn't had a great spring. I'm going to try and ease some of your concerns again on the other side, but I got to tell you, yeah, alarms are going off for me too. We'll get into that in just a second. First, though, I want to tell you about Built Bar. Built Bar is awesome. The weather's getting nice. We're into spring now. It's officially spring. It's sprung. I love this time of the year. And it's a great time to get yourself in great shape for when the weather really breaks and it's time to head to that beach. Well, if you don't like the taste of your regular protein bars, it tastes like dust or dirt or whatever, you got to try Built Bar. They do taste amazing. They have protein-infused marshmallows. And listen to some of these great flavors. Oh, we got churro, coconut marshmallow, banana cream pie. That doesn't even sound like protein bars. That sounds like dessert. Plus, the numbers on this, 100% real chocolate, but you still get 130 calories only, 4 grams of sugar only, 4 net carbs only, and 17 full grams of protein. That's awesome. You get amazing numbers on that, and it tastes great. Plus, they have the regular bars if you don't want to do the marshmallows with some great flavors like mint brownie, coconut, coconut almond, and white chocolate cookies and cream is their new flavor. They got new flavors all the time because at Built Bar, they're all about the taste. They make it taste delicious first and then figure out how to make it healthy. And I don't know how, but they pull it off every single time. So I want you to go to built.com, use promo code LOCK15 and get 15% off your order. That's promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at built.com. All right, so the Phillies took on the Pirates yesterday in what was, I guess we'll call it a game. They only went 5 innings, went into a little rain delay, and ended up calling the game because of the rain. They don't really play those out in spring training. No reason to. What we saw, though, was we saw a 3-3 tie with some interesting things that are worth getting into in this contest. What was the 5th game for the Phillies, or I guess maybe more than that, because I'm looking at their record. It doesn't have the ties on there, and I know they've now tied twice. So I guess that was probably the 7th game the Phillies have played down there in Clearwater. It's hard to keep track when the games don't really matter all that much, and you're just looking at individual storylines. The biggest one from this game, Aaron Nola went 3 innings. He gave up 2 runs. He gave up 2 homers. Not great, and they were both nukes, and it was similar to what we saw when he faced off against the Toronto Blue Jays, gave up 2 home runs in that game as well. So a lot of people were panicking about Aaron Nola on social media and worrying about him and everything. And some other news that we have that we'll get into on Monday's episode. I'll take a deeper dive on how everything works out in the rotation. But Joe Girardi came out and already named Aaron Nola the opening day starter for 2022 for the Philadelphia Phillies. Part of that is because of the setback with Zach Wheeler. Of course, Zach Wheeler would have been that guy, being the NL Cy Young runner-up, but he's running a little bit behind schedule. So Aaron Nola will be your opening day starter come the 2022 regular season. Well, he's got a 7.2 ERA right now in spring training, and I know I warned you, don't take spring training all that seriously. Don't worry about it all that much. There's a lot of stuff that goes into it that guys are working on and everything. Well, now I'm starting to get the chills a little bit when I think about Aaron Nola because his stuff just doesn't look great command-wise when he gets up in the count. In 2018, when he had his best season as a pro and was in that Cy Young voting, a Cy Young finalist, he had great finish to his at-bats. When he was facing off against people, he would get them down and he would just finish easily. Well, lately, as he struggled, his problem is later in at-bats, he just doesn't have the out pitch as much as he used to. And when he misses, he gets hurt with it. He doesn't miss to walk. He misses to give up nukes, and it's been crushing him from really late 2020 through last year into now spring training of this year. Am I sure Aaron Nola is going to be good this year? No, I can't say that, which is scary to say about a guy who's going to be your opening day starter and for a rotation that I really, really like. But is the reasoning behind it what I'm seeing this spring training? Still no. Let's jump into a little bit of what he's doing. He's still striking out a good amount of people. 3 Ks in this one in 3 innings. K per 9 is probably right around 9 if I'm just going off the top of my head based on what he's done this spring. So he's striking guys out, and the home runs he's given up on almost exclusively on the fastball, which was something that he did last year. His command of it, late in counts, was not good. So now you're seeing him go to it. I think, if I've got to get inside the mind of Aaron Nola, I think he's trying to build confidence in that pitch because he didn't have it last year. Now, giving up nukes in spring training is not a great way to build that confidence, but that's why he keeps going back to it. And ultimately, in the regular season, when these games count, if you don't have confidence in a pitch, you're not going to throw that pitch. You're going to shake, or your pitching coach is going to know not to call that pitch for you, or your catcher, a very smart one, and JT Realmuto, is going to know he doesn't like that one in this spot. We're not doing it. So in the regular season, he'll just avoid it. Ideally, you're going to want him to be able to throw 2-strike fastballs and elevate that pitch and get it up out of the zone extended so that hitters can't go after it up there and he gets more strikeouts. But worst comes to worst, he won't go to this pitch in these spots as much. The pitching staff and the coaches and Aaron Nola himself, the catchers, everyone's too smart to just keep going back to a pitch that's not working. So even though it looks rough in spring training, the worst case is that they'll just have to eliminate that, and it makes him a little bit easier to see. But he won't be giving up home runs this frequently in the regular season. It's nothing to worry about on that end. What is to worry about is that he hasn't figured out how to throw a fastball with 2 strikes yet, or late in the count in general. So he's going to have to get over that mental hurdle. And I think it's more of a mental hurdle. He's striking guys out here and there. Just when he misses late, he misses badly. And it ends up with balls in the seats. That cannot happen in 2022 if the Phillies are going to be successful, especially with Zach Wheeler missing a little bit of time at the start. And we'll see what he's like as he ramps back up to actual pitching. But that's what we saw from Aaron Nola. Just going through the lineup, there's nothing all that crazy that happened. Rhys Hoskins had a nice little homer in, what inning was it? 4th inning. He had a nice little 2-run homer, 2 RBI day for him. 1 run on 1 hit in 2 at-bats. So he supplied most of the offense there. And the other RBI came by way of a guy I talked about in the first segment, Mickey Moniak. Moniak went ahead and he had, I guess it was an RBI single. Yeah, I didn't get a chance to catch the game because I was doing TV. But Moniak has been having a rough spring, has not really adjusted to major league pitching yet. It's nice to see him get a little bit of a confidence boost by having a strong at-bat that ended up being an RBI having at-bat in this one. So just like these are the minimal things. I'm not spending too much time on this game. The biggest storyline is Aaron Nola and what that means for his ability to be one of the top guys in the staff this year, but also just taking a little peek at the swing and hitting numbers when we have them. So that's the recap of what went on in that Phillies Pirates game. Now I have an apology. Again, this March Madness tournament, that's why they call it Madness, because it's been crazy. Well, I forgot to put the poll up for the Manny Trio triple and everything there. Against the Shane Victorino Grand Slam off of CC Sabathia. That'll go up today, and that'll be coupled with our off the poll that we'll have for this weekend. So I apologize about that. That's on me. That'll be back out, and we'll give our newest matchup come Monday. That's everything we have on the game and the top 8 Phillies bracket. Now, coming up next, we've got the closer, where I want to introduce something new I'm going to be doing on YouTube that I'll be doing interacting-wise with you out there, and I'll also recap what we did this week, give you the off the poll question for the weekend, and set up what we got going on next week. I also want to remind you about Locked On MLB Prospects. Lindsey Crosby's amazing. We did a crossover a couple weeks ago about some Phillies prospects. He's an encyclopedia when it comes to the young up-and-coming stars in Major League Baseball. He goes deep every day on the stars of tomorrow, from the minors to college to even high school, draftable players. You'll know about all of them if you just go ahead and check out Locked On MLB Prospects. My friend over there, Lindsey Crosby. And you know I got to tell you about our great friends over at Bet Online, because it's that time of year again. College basketball tournament is finally upon us. The Sweet 16 started last night. Couple big games, Nova and Michigan. And then you had, what was the other one? Gonzaga goes down. Can you believe it? Gonzaga falls to Arkansas? Crazy. Well, you could have believed it if you had gone over to Bet Online and checked out their information and odds. From all the latest odds, contests, and player props, betonline.net is the #1 source for all your sports betting needs and info. BetOnline remains the best spot for all of your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. It's not just basketball, rather. They do have baseball, but BetOnline is your continued source for all sports wagering, information, and even including live betting in your favorite Vegas casino games. So head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, it's time for the closer. It's our final segment every week on Fridays. A couple more episodes this week, but we're still keeping our normal segments running. So let's go through what we went through this week. We talked a little bit about the signing, some introductory press conferences. Kyle Schwarber was introduced. He got his first action. Nick Castellanos was introduced. He'll get his first action soon enough. We learned about some injury stuff with Odubel Herrera. Zach Wheeler apparently not going to be available for opening day, so Aaron Nola is your opening day starter. And a couple of games that we recapped. There was some fun stuff we did in stepping off. I ranted a little bit about the base sizes, and we also got our top 8 bracket started with some votes there, which will continue over the weekend and through this next week's episodes. So much fun stuff. If any of that sounds interesting and you missed it, go back and check out my thoughts on Nick Castellanos, Kyle Schwarber, the rest of the Phillies' performance from this week. So all those episodes you can find in the podcast feed or on YouTube if you just go ahead and scroll back through the recent videos. So some stuff that we have coming up this week. We're still in the talks. I need to update you on that NL East roundtable that we talked about back when I was ranking parts of teams. Well, we're going to get that going for you soon. We pushed it back a little bit because baseball got started, but I'm in talks with the other MLB hosts from the NL East, and we're talking about figuring out a time. So soon, either this week or next week, you're going to have the content on the NL East preseason roundtable. That'll be exciting. We'll continue our bracket. We'll talk about the latest spring training games. We'll take a look at Zach Wheeler's progress and everything there, and hopefully we'll get our first glimpse of Nick Castellanos so we can talk about what he looks like in Phillies pinstripes wearing that number 8. So that's all fun. That's what we've got coming up next week, and something new that I told you that I wanted to start doing. So this is on YouTube. I've been seeing all your guys' comments. I appreciate it very much. Please go ahead, rate, review, subscribe to the YouTube, check out the podcast. Give me the 5 stars on that. Leave a comment if you love it. I appreciate all that. It really helps me get to where I need to be to put out the best possible content for you. And then also with the comments, it allows your voice to be heard. Now I read them, but I haven't really responded to any comments, at least on YouTube. I'm normally a lot more accessible on Twitter, but I'm going to be starting to do a new thing. Friday, happy hour, because I'm a big happy hour guy. We're going to have Comments Friday, YouTube Comments Friday, where I'm going to hop in for an hour normally from about 5 to 6 as I sit down and I have my evening beverage on a Friday night. I'm going to go ahead and jump in. And if that time ever changes or switches around, I'll let you know on Twitter, and I'll let you know in the episode what time it's going to be every week. But normally 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. Friday, I'm going to go through the comments from the week on all the videos in YouTube. There won't be like live comments, but it'll be, you can see me comment and then you can respond and I'll go back in. So anyone who jumps in during that time or just keep commenting throughout the week like you have been, I'll go back and respond to a bunch of those on Friday so that we can have essentially a type of live conversation. And there are live aspects here where when the season starts, I'll be able to jump in and do live broadcasts on YouTube. And that'll be for big things like huge wins and big breaking news, stuff like that. But for the time being, I want to make sure I'm getting back to your comments on YouTube because I want to thank you all so much for subscribing to that. Got a bunch of subscribers already. Keep having them pour in. If you're not subscribed, you're missing out on all the notifications and keeping yourself as up to date as possible. And now you'll be missing out on YouTube Comment Fridays, which will start this next Friday coming up. So I'm excited to do that with you. Now, finally, before I get out of here for the weekend, we got to introduce the Off the Poll segment. So this is the question for the weekend that'll be on Twitter at @LO_Phillies. And you can also find it at ConnorThomas975 because I'll retweet it from my personal Twitter account. So here's the question. We have an injury in center field with Odubel Herrera. We have a third base potential opening with Alec Bohm struggling. So it looks like what Joe Girardi has already said, Matt Vierling's the option in center field. We're assuming Alec Bohm is the option at third base for the time being. But which replacement is more likely? Adam Hazley playing more in center field than Matt Vierling, or Johan Camargo playing more at third base than Alec Bohm? It looks like both of those positions are going to go to those former guys that are currently in the spots right now. But who's most likely to overtake the person ahead of them? Is it Camargo? Is it Hazley? So I'll put that out. Get at me in the comments. Let me know what you think. And we'll go ahead and discuss all of that on Monday's episode as we do our Off the Poll segment. That's all I've got for you for the week. It was an awesome week of everything. Like, so much fun stuff when baseball gets actually started. And I could talk about games with you and recap things of that nature. It's so much easier to do this show. It makes it more fun for you guys, and it sure makes it a hell of a lot more fun for me when I actually have baseball to talk about. So that's a whole lot of fun stuff. Real quick before I'm out of here, I want to thank you again for making Locked On Phillies your first listen every day. Now make your second listen Locked On MLB. Paul Francis Sullivan, you know him as Sully by this point. He brings you his unique perspective on the major leagues past and present. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks again for a fun week here on Locked On Phillies. Hey, let's do it again next week, huh? What do you say? I'm Connor Thomas. I will talk to you all on Monday.